President Bola Tinubu assumed office on May 29, 2023, following a highly contested election. 1 year down the line, Nigerians are taking stock of the performance of the president and his team. The federal government during the week said it plans to keep celebrations low-key. This was made known by the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, at a World Press Conference. Ministers have in the last 2 days presented their scorecards. For more on this, we have in the studio former Director General, Voice of Nigeria, Osita Okechukwu, who's a member of the All Progressives Congress. We also have in our studio here a public affairs analyst, Mazi Nnamdi Iroegbu. He is the convener of the indigenous people of Nigeria. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the program.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So it's one year. Let me start with you, Mr. Osita Okechukwu. What's there to celebrate after 1 year in office of President Bola Tinubu?
That a foundation for the prosperity of the country is being laid. That President Tinubu was bold enough and courageous to say that instead of sinking billions of dollars in the fuel subsidy, we have to stop somewhere. Because there's an old axiom that if you are in a ditch, instead of digging deeper, you should find a way to climb out. So what he had done is that he had found a way that we have to save money on the freebie of the fuel subsidy. Rather, if we're going to borrow, let it be borrowed for tangibles. And that, you know, they said if you want to make an omelette, you must break the egg.
But we're still somehow paying some sort of subsidy. It's not completely gone
there's
at this time.
No subsidy on fuel anymore. And if you look at some of the report of the ministers, you cannot say like Minister of Federal Capital Territory, Wike, if you have lived in Abuja for some time, you say there's a paradigm shift.
So let's
if
say
you go to,
we'll come to that in details later. But I want to ask you, do you admit that it has been a tough 1 year for Nigerians?
As I said, you cannot make an omelette without breaking the egg. It has been tough. And it is how to stop pretending. Because immediately you cast your mind back to remember that our electricity is in a binge because of the fact that when it was privatized, it was less than transparent. And you can't knock off in a day. But we are moving towards giving Nigerians back their country and returning governance more prudent, more concise, using the little you have for what you have. And if you want to borrow, we're going to borrow on electricity to make sure that there is constant power supply in the country. For Nigerians who are very creative, to invest accordingly, whatever they want to do. Not question of, for over 20 years, having less than 4,000 megawatts of electricity.
Okay. So let's come to you, Mr. Iroegbu. Do you agree that the government is now on the right path?
It's laughable to hear that there is any plan in place yet. There's no plan in place. From day one at the Eagle Square, the Bola Tinubu administration declared hunger, in the land by removing subsidy. But you asked a pertinent question: is subsidy really gone? Are we not still paying for subsidy? We are, because ask yourself, if exchange rate is 1,000 plus and you're selling it for 600 and something naira, the outstanding, how is that? How do you take care of that? So subsidy is being paid for. That's the truth. but through the back door, and more is being paid for. But let's focus on how well has the government done. The fact is out there in the public domain, the hunger that is in the society today, the economic state of our country, all that the indices you're seeing about, okay, whether government is making progress or not, is negative. So there's nothing, and that's why government, the government of the day, knowing truly that they have done terribly bad, of course, they are taking the part of saying, oh, that they are going to, there will be no celebration, because there's nothing to celebrate. There's nothing to celebrate.
But you can agree that it's been a difficult time.
It's terrible.
They came into government and inherited a very difficult.
It's the same government,
economy,
the same APC government. My Egbon here, he is a founding member of APC, and he was in that government that came into existence in 2015. So it's the same APC. There's nothing like, oh, they inherited. Inherited what? There is a continuum in governance. And being the same political party, nobody should be telling us about how they inherited whatever that is negative. The APC government started off with Muhammadu Buhari. Muhammadu Buhari came, balkanized our nation, wrecked the economy, and every negative indices was captured for it and all of that. And then, of course, the leader of the party took over. Remember that Bola Ahmed Tinubu was the national leader of APC when Muhammadu Buhari was in government. All right, so he took over and continued. Of course, he even told us during his campaign that it was going to continue from where President Muhammadu Buhari stopped. We didn't know that it was going to be this bad. We didn't know, because sincerely, 1 year of this government is a terrible state that Nigeria has found itself. Okay, very terrible state.
Mr. Okechukwu, let's look at some numbers. According to the Nigeria Economic Outlook for 2024, GDP growth is projected to be 3.2%. That's below quite a number of countries in Africa. For instance, in Ethiopia, they will be growing at 6.8%, and in Congo DRC, it's 6.4%. And then unemployment rate is projected to rise as well. Population growth will remain at 2.4%. That means if we're growing in terms of population, our economy should be growing faster. So do you have confidence? It's only 1 year, so there's still time, some would say. Do you have confidence that there will be a spectacular turnaround in the remaining 3 years of the government?
My sister, I'm happy with the data you've laid on the table for our audience. But please, could you tell us as well the data we had in 2013?
So, 2013?
Yes.
Yeah, let's stop looking back. So we already know what happened.
No. You know why it's important?
But we can't.
I'm coming.
Okay.
We're not in a debating society.
No, definitely not.
So my people have a saying that the best you should do is to know where the rain started.
True.
Because if you do not know where the rain started, you won't know where it will get bad. Anybody that tells you today that Nigeria suddenly had a large percentage of multi-dimensional poor in 2 days or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. No. Unless anybody wants to tell a lie. What we're saying is that the time we returned in 1999, the same neoliberal policy was adopted. And even up to the houses of the National Assembly were sold. Houses of civil servants were sold. Everything was sold.
So are you saying that
I'm saying
party,
when you run Iroegbu Foundation for Crisis, Nigerians did not see the money realized from the privatization.
Okay, so that's going, but let's
saying,
talk about
don't
today.
go back now. Don't jump.
Yes.
Because if you jump, you won't be fair to what is happening now. We are saying material conditions that brought it is what APC is trying to stop.
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
We are saying that the good thing about Asiwaju, President Bola Tinubu, is that he's also listening to the public. Unlike when My brother was there.
Your brother?
When
okay. So,
when
you
green,
talked about.
I'm coming. When $23 billion green refinery was approved between the federal government of Nigeria in 2013 and 12 and the Chinese government. We know the percentage Nigeria was to put in and the Chinese. And the Chinese said, okay, this is our own. It didn't come. That led to a hemorrhage because the money being withdrawn from the purse of the Federation is why we are suffering today.
Okay, Mr.
And
Okechukwu,
we are
we don't have
stopping
all
it.
the time. Yeah, I understand you've laid the foundation of what has happened in the past, but
Yes.
your party was in power for 8 years under Muhammad Buhari.
Yeah, we're now on
and
the
so you're
ninth.
now in the,
On the ninth.
another 4 years, yeah, possibly,
now on the
possibly
ninth.
8 years.
Yeah.
So you talked about neoliberal policies enacted under the PDP government. Is your party not running neoliberal policies still, with the World Bank and the IMF and all of that? Are you not still doing the same thing?
We are now trying to modify. Because like he said, he's talking as if he doesn't know that 3 major presidential candidates all agreed to remove the fuel subsidy. Nobody could have done anything different. You know why? We are not going to the bush to ambush the world. But luckily for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the world had agreed, the international community had agreed that his trajectory is going to lead Nigeria to a positive side. Let us harvest. Yes, there's hardship in the land, but that hardship, instead of continuing, is better to be stopped. So all we are doing is to put a wage, finally, and return Nigeria to prosperity.
Okay, so Mr. Iroegbu, it's 1 year. Would you advise the government to have a cabinet shake-up? And if that happens, do you think that would make any significant difference?
Thank you, but let me please remind them here that if you're saying we don't know where we're coming from, let me remind you that we were coming from when dollar was less than 200 naira. That's where we were coming from in 2015. We were coming from when a bag of rice was less than 10,000, at least 8,000 naira. That's where we're coming from. Nigerians could feed before you took over in 2015. We were also coming from when in 2012, the PDP government then attempted to remove subsidy. Your then CPC and ACN and all of it that came together mobilized Nigerians against it and all that. So that's where we're coming from, all right? But the aspect of shaking up the cabinet is not the issue, because if you say you were coming to control some of the excesses that PDP had while in government and all of that, you are having almost 50, if not 50 ministers. How do you control that? How is that adding value to the corporate existence of Nigeria? How is that adding value to managing the economy of Nigeria? You have ministers running around here and there and adding nothing. So it's not just about shaking up the cabinet, but also cutting down. If you have made a mistake appointing almost 50 people as ministers, cut down to almost half of it, if that's possible, and all of that will be what will be serious if you are looking at wanting to cut down cost of governance and all of that. This government has no plan, because the city boy, as they marketed to us, told the whole world that coming from the city, that the internally generated district revenue in Lagos was so low, and then he came in and bam. So he brings it to Nigeria. That's the larger society now. And taxation is the order of the day in Nigeria. Just like a bandit who captured people and then taxing them for whatever. No? That's what we're experiencing here. There's no plan in place. 1 year you say is not enough. It started off with saying, no, 6 months is not enough. 1 year, it's a lot in the life of any nation to know whether the government of the day has any plan for it or not. So there's no plan whatsoever in place.
You do not see any light down the tunnel.
There's nothing in place, because by the body language, by the policies of the government, by the people that they have in government, it's not propaganda that will run your government. The people can tell whether your government is running well or not. Nigerian people know that to afford food now is almost impossible. That basic things about human existence is nowhere to be found.
Okay.
So we know that there's nothing available on the table. That's the truth.
Okay, 20 seconds to each of you because we're running out of time. Mr. Okechukwu, do you think or would you advise the government to inject new life into his team? 20 seconds.
The most important thing the President Tinubu is going to inject, since the international community had bought into his policies, is huge funds.
Is the international community more important than Nigeria?
I'm coming now. What is going to make Nigerians to be happy is what concerns Tinubu. And luckily for him, the international community have bought into his economic policies. So we are going to utilize that window to source for funds, to improve our electricity, to do mass housing, and other student loan, and other freebies that will water down the anger in the land. On the issue of cabinet, Mr. Tinubu listens. They talked about the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Rail Line. He made a change. They talked about the governing council of tertiary institutions that they said was skewed against some states. He said, let's overhaul.
Okay.
That had not been the issue. So we should take Tinubu for what he's doing. Yes, 1 year is much, but it's also less. If you go by the convention of 8 years of Obasanjo, 8 years Jonathan Yaradua, 8 years Buhari, in his 8 years, it's only 12.5%.
Okay.
So we cannot condemn him with 12.5%.
Okay, what's your last word in reaction to what he has said?
First off, there's no plan in place. The Nigerian people should realize that we don't have any government that has plans for its survival. The Nigerian people must know that. And we should stop being docile and revolt against the ills in the system. We're not like a conquered people, right? You say,
so
oh,
Nigerians are behaving like conquered
yes,
people.
we're like subdued,
insinuating.
a people who have been so subdued that we can't resist or stand up against the ills in our system.
Will you go out in the streets yourself?
I will always will be on the street, because by every means, you cannot beat a child or smack a child and say the child should not cry. There is hunger in our land. There is insecurity in our land. There is no light available. All of these stories, my boy here is more like campaigning. This is governance, and there is nothing in place. You're telling us you will do, you will do, you will do.
Today?
You have 1 year, excuse me, sir. You have 1 year.
Did it start today?
You had one,
right,
you have
gentlemen.
one. Like I said, this is APC government. You cannot pretend about it.
All right,
You have
gentlemen.
9 years and you've not been able to achieve anything.
You can rehearse your prejudice.
All right, gentlemen.
But that
thank
does
you
not
so
mean
much.
economic plan.
Yes,
There's
thanks.
economic plan on the ground.
Okay, thank
not
you
about
so
your
much.
prejudice.
The economic
and
plan that you're looking at,
All right, gentlemen, we're out of
IMF
time.
and the rest of them. Nigeria should come first.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. That's so much we can take on this edition of This Week.